Deep in the heart of England, there lived a legend, a mythological icon that can be traced back as far as the 13th century, a swashbuckling tale of love and rebellion that has been told again and again since the days of its inception. I speak, of course, of the legendary outlaw, master of the bow, and grandfather of anti-authoritarianism, Robin Hood. Robin and his merry men have had many interpretations and adaptations in literature and film, such as the equally legendary theatrical feature, The Adventures of Robin Hood. The feature starred the talented Errol Flynn, who rose to fame during the golden age of Hollywood, and it really shows in his bravado and swashbuckling swagger as the charming Lord of Loxley in this 1938 film. His interpretation of Robin Hood was one that was boisterous, charismatic, and full of life. However, the character's motivations are simple: rob from the rich and give to the poor. In order to accomplish his goals, Robin and his merry men must face off against the Sheriff of Nottingham and Prince John. And now, over 80 years after this film's release, Robin Hood continues to be adapted again and again because the story of Robin Hood is timeless, and its themes continue to echo our own socioeconomic issues today. It is a story of love, fellowship, overcoming hardships, and pushing back against a tyrannical ruling class. Notable adaptations throughout the years include Disney's Robin Hood from 1973, which is my personal favorite of Disney's silver era of films, Kevin Reynolds' 1991 Robin Hood Prince of Thieves starring Kevin Costner, and of course, Mel Brooks' 1993 comedy musical Robin Hood Men in Tights. However, today I want to shine some light on an adaptation of the beloved folk hero that I believe to be one of the most relatable and humanistic depictions of Robin and his merry band of outlaws. The 2006 Robin Hood TV series. Let's dive in. Produced by an independent production company by the name of Tiger Aspect, Robin Hood was in part created by Dominic Minghella and Foz Allen to air on the BBC network. The show ran for 3 seasons, or series in the UK, from 2006 and ended in 2009. A 4th series was planned, but was inevitably cancelled due to the lead actor leaving the show and wanting to pursue other projects. It was also believed that one of the reasons the show was picked up was to specifically fill the Saturday evening drama slot whenever the newly revived Doctor Who was on break between series. The show itself was filled with lighthearted comedy, fun low-budget action, and compelling interpersonal conflict. Let's take a look at Episode 1, Will You Tolerate This? Our story begins in Nottinghamshire, 1192, with not Robin Hood, but Alan a Dale, played by Joe Armstrong, hunting in the king's forest. He is immediately caught by the law and told he will lose a hand for killing the king's deer unless he admits his guilt. He protests, but ultimately admits his guilt, settling for losing a finger. As one of the guards has his axe ready, a volley of arrows pierces the wood between each of the guard's fingers, and we are introduced to the titular Robin Hood, played by Jonas Armstrong, who has no relation to Joe Armstrong. Robin warns the guards that they should move along and threatens that he has more men surrounding them. This, however, turns out to be our introduction to Much, played by Sam Trofton, who is operating lines of rope that are attached to branches nearby to make it seem like there are people surrounding the area. Robin fires an arrow into the sky, and it falls back down, piercing the leader's saddlebag in front of him in one final attempt to intimidate them to leave. They release Alan and begin to leave on horseback as Much comes out from his hiding spot and taunts the guards just as they are leaving. He manages to slip that there are no reinforcements, and the guards turn to give chase after them. They run away as the opening credits play. As a kid, I loved this opening for the show. The song was triumphant and made me feel like we were about to embark on a grand adventure, and the silhouetted figures denoted a feeling of mystery and wonder. It shows that you don't need an expensive sequence or a crazy intricate CGI intro to have a good opening credits that can set the scene and makes you want to keep watching. We return to Robin and Much fleeing further into the forest from the guards until they come upon a hollow under a large tree's roots. The guards pass them, and Much begins to speak, but Robin quickly silences him as one more guard passes by. They come out, and Robin exclaims to Much that they've been in the Crusades for 5 years, and Much still forgets the last man, referencing that there's always one slowpoke who catches up behind the group. We cut away to the pair walking towards Loxley, which Robin is lord of, as Much daydreams of being home and eating copious amounts of meat. They stop at a small farm on the way and decide to stay for a meal in exchange for some manual labor. Robin talks to the farmer's daughter, who is preparing dinner, and she immediately wants to bang him. They get their mac on while Much listens to the farmer complaining about the increase in taxes that he can't afford to pay. Much sees what Robin is up to and tries to keep the farmer from seeing what is happening behind him. The farmer catches on and rushes to slice off Robin's manhood. Much tosses Robin his sword, a scimitar that he acquired in the Holy Land, and he and the farmer both flourish their weapons with the same fervor as the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. This first real sword fight is a mixed bag because at times it is really jarring with awkward cuts and slow, non-committal swings, but at other times, such as the overhead shot, it looks a lot better in my opinion. Just as it seems the farmer has his blade at Robin's throat, Robin does a sick backflip off the barn and they flee once more. They camp through the night and soon make it back home to Loxley. However, when expecting a warm welcome, they notice something immediately wrong. The people of the village avoid them and run inside their homes. Luckily, Robin notices a familiar face, Dan Scarlet, played by Sean Murray, who is shown sawing through a piece of lumber with one hand. He offers them a hug, to which they discover Dan has had his hand chopped off in an incident, as well as coming to learn that Guy of Gisborne has been running Robin's estate while he's been away. Dan explains that his two boys were also hunting in the King's Forest and were caught by Gisborne's men, and decided to take the punishment on their behalf because he is old and they have much more life to live. Robin is outraged and tells Dan he will work to compensate him, but Dan says that as long as his boys are well, he is happy. Robin is introduced to Dan's sons, Luke and Will Scarlet. Luke tries to impress Robin with his bow, but fails horribly, as Dan tells Robin that his wife has been dead for 2 years and the whole village is suffering from Gisborne's leadership. And like clockwork, we're introduced to Guy of Gisborne, played by Thorin Oakenshield, Trevor Belmont himself, Richard Armitage. Guy exclaims that someone has stolen 10 sacks of flour from the store and they will be found. Robin steps forward and reveals that he is the lord of this land. Return home and...
Your services here are no longer required.
Robin returns to his estate and reconnects with his old servants. Robin also reveals that Much is no longer his manservant and he has made him a free man. Much excuses himself to take a bath and requests a plate of food while he bathes. Guy intrudes on Robin's house and explains that he's been a good boy, keeping Robin's lands nice and doing his taxes and stuff, but demands a little respect from him in front of the peasantry. Robin claps back and says, "The people don't respect you already?" Robin and Guy exchange more back and forth one-liners until Guy says he's seen Robin fight before. Robin is confused by this and Guy deflects any further questions about the topic. This is our first piece of foreshadowing that something more mysterious is going on in this adaptation. Guy tells Robin the sheriff will want to host a feast for the Lord of Loxley's return. While this is happening, Much is munching on a big piece of meat in the bath while a servant asks him about what the Crusades were like. Much explains that it would upset her if he started talking about it. As she leaves, he begins to remember his time there and cries, which both humanizes him and shows us that Much has much more going on than being just the comic relief. He was in a war, he has seen people die, and he has had traumatic experiences because of it. Robin ruins the moment by bursting into the room and tells Much that they're going to see the former sheriff and ask him what has been going on since they've been in Jerusalem. They go to Knighton Hall, and the former sheriff, Edward of Knighton, played by Michael Elwyn, comes out and begins barking at them to leave. Robin says, "Bro, we're friends. How could you, bro?" But the sheriff continues his demands for them to leave. In the doorway is his daughter, Maid Marian, played by Lucy Griffiths, pointing an arrow at Robin. This trope has always bothered me in film and TV while representing an archer who holds an arrow at full draw, either while interrogating someone or in some kind of standoff. In real life, when you draw a bow, it's way heavier than you think. You don't use your biceps to draw, it's a completely different set of muscles. What this means is holding an arrow at full draw gets extremely strenuous for more than a couple seconds that you need to aim. Robin and Much return to Loxley Manor to find that his people are much happier after being invited to his estate for food. They find Dan once more, and he tells them Guy learned it was his sons who stole the flour and they've been taken to Nottingham. Robin promises he will talk to the sheriff and rides to Nottingham proper. In town, they see it looks to be in pretty bad shape. We cut to an interior of Nottingham Castle, and the first thing we hear is the demented laughter of the current sheriff, played by Keith Allen, and he is quite frankly loving every minute of it, and it shows in his performance. Funnily enough, the sheriff in this actually has a name. The sheriff in the original tale never explicitly had a name, but some adaptations have given him one, such as in Robin of Sherwood, a different British television show. He was given the name Robert de Renault. This totally sounds like a name the sheriff would have. It's a great addition. In Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, he is given the spine-shivering, dastardly name of George. And what is the sheriff's name in this take on Robin Hood? Vasey. I guess that fits. Sheriff Vasey is lounging, having his boots shined while Guy of Gisborne is trying to plan with him on what they're going to do about Loxley. The sheriff taunts and prods and tells Gisborne he'll take care of it. Later, Robin comes to the meeting of lords and tries to convince the sheriff to stop taxing the people. The sheriff asks Robin to consider that a person who is comfortable is lazy, and taxing them more will incentivize them to work harder. Marion catches Robin in the hallway and explains that her father's house is watched, and that's why they were acting so strangely before, but Edward would like to speak to Robin in private later. Robin tries to charm Marion, but she has a high charisma saving throw and nopes out of there. Robin and Much are escorted to the dungeon to see the Scarlet Boys and find out that Alan Adale has been caught by the law once again. The boys are brought before them and Will Scarlet is told to confess their crimes. They learn that the punishment for the boys stealing flour is to be hanged. Robin returns to the sheriff to ask that the boys be pardoned, and the sheriff replies that rumors are circulating that Robin has been weakened from his time in the Holy Land and refuses his request. At Nightenhall that evening, Robin learns from Edward that Prince John is calling the shots in Richard's absence, and tries to convince Robin to gain the other lord's favor to fight back against the current sheriff. Robin says he doesn't have time to play the long game, he has to do something now. He realizes over a long night to himself that if he's going to save the Scarlet Boys, he has to do so by force. He goes to the hanging the next day with Much, but has a plan to prevent their sentence from being carried out. One of the villagers from Loxley poses as a monk and proclaims that the men who are to be hanged were sanctified and became novices, therefore being protected by the church. The sheriff immediately sees through the ruse and arrests him. Robin Hood has an early 2000s flashback sequence and springs into action with no other option now. He grabs a bow and shoots the ropes free and flees from Nottingham into Sherwood Forest with Will and Alan. They make camp for the night but soon discover that they aren't the only outlaws who reside here as we fade to black and the end credits roll. This is just a taste of what the series has to offer, but it was such a great pilot when it came out. It immediately sets the tone of the entire series, foreshadows some events to come, and introduces us to a majority of the cast of characters we'll be following. Along the way, we are also introduced to some more of Robin's merry band, such as Little John, the brutish yet kind-hearted man of the forest, played by Gordon Kennedy, Jack, a Turk woman who understands alchemy and is essentially the team's doctor, played by Anjali J, Friar Tuck, a monk who isn't afraid to steal or fight to help others, played by David Harewood, and Kate, a spunky village girl played by Joanne Froggatt. However, she and Tuck joined the group in Series 3, so we'll talk about them later. As each episode of Series 1 goes on, we learn more and more about the awful things the sheriff does to the people of Nottingham and its surrounding territories, and how Robin foils his plans at every turn, robbing from the rich to give to the poor. However, unlike other adaptations of Robin Hood, we get to explore more mature themes and dive deeper into the psyche of Robin Hood, something that you just can't get in a 90-minute feature. In episode 4, Parenthood, we learn that the reason why Robin came home is because he was gravely injured in the Holy Land, and when he was healed, King Richard relieved him of service. He feels crestfallen in a way because he was injured while saving the king's life and is seemingly punished for it. At the same time, another member of Little John's initial group, Roy, is extorted into killing Robin Hood to free his mother from the castle dungeon. Roy inevitably fails and even dies at the hands of the sheriff's guards as a way of repentance. Much doesn't get much more development with his trauma involving the Crusades, unfortunately, but instead Robin explores more of that theme with reoccurring nightmares in episode 8, Tattoo? What Tattoo? About the incident that led to his injury. In the same episode, it's discovered that Guy of Gisborne has seen Robin fight, as he foreshadowed in episode 1, because he was there in the Holy Land in an attempt to assassinate King Richard, and the sheriff knew about it, which isn't as shocking. Marion is portrayed as the strong woman who's clever and quick-witted, and by night she has one goal: to save her city. Another theme that is constantly brought up in Series 1 is that Robin's intentions might not completely be for good, but selfish reasons. Robin, according to some, craves the people's love and admiration for his good deeds, and his own friends challenge him on it. This is then echoed in Series 3 when we're introduced to Prince John, who also wants the same thing, but again, we'll talk about Series 3 later. Throughout the series, we get to explore more of the concept of Robin Hood, the person, instead of Robin Hood, the legend. And even though I'm focusing mostly on Robin's characterization, don't let that lead you to believe the rest of the cast doesn't have intriguing character development as well. Most of them do. For a sizable portion of Series 2, we learn that there's a spy in Robin's camp as something goes horribly wrong with their recent plans at every turn. Not that they ever really fail, they just have to stay quick on their feet whenever the situation changes and something they couldn't have predicted occurs. We, the audience, know that when Alan is captured in the first episode that he is tortured into betraying Robin, and we watch as he has this internal struggle with his loyalty to the group, whom he does prove to care about, and his own needs and wants, that Gisborne provides in exchange for information. Alan gets a little too comfortable playing both sides, however, and eventually his double cross is found out. Marion persuades Robin not to kill Alan and chooses to exile him instead. And then he joins the sheriff's side! At least for several more episodes until he inevitably returns to Robin's side. This depiction of the lovable minstrel Alan Adale is so interesting because he isn't just relegated to being a side character, he is a contributing member to both Robin and the sheriff's game of cat and mouse, and really makes him stand out as more than the sum of his parts. Series 2 has an overarching plot that revolves around the sheriff being a part of a secret group called the Black Knights that is plotting to overthrow King Richard once he returns from the Holy Land. Each member of the Black Knights signs a document that they plan to use as a show of support for Prince John to take the throne instead of the rightful king. However, each member's name is on the so-called Pact of Nottingham, so Robin plans to steal it and show it to King Richard as proof of the Black Knight's betrayal. In the final 2 episodes, Alan learns that the sheriff is planning another assassination attempt on the king in Jerusalem, which also means we just completely dropped the whole pact plot line, but whatever. Alan Adale goes to find Robin and saves him and his friends from an impossible scenario where they otherwise wouldn't have made it out alive. They journey to Jerusalem and warn King Richard, but the sheriff is one step ahead of them, planting a spy among King Richard's soldiers that warns him that Robin is a traitor. An old ally that we met in Series 1 comes to rescue them, and they face off against the Black Knights in Jerusalem. Marion is also here, and this is what I believe to be the fulcrum in the show's unfortunate decline, at least from a narrative standpoint. Marion dies. She professes her love for Robin Hood in front of Gisborne. He stabs her in a fit of jealousy and runs away. Robin rushes to her side, and they exchange their wedding vows as she dies in his arms. At the funeral, King Richard vows to finish this war in Jerusalem soon, so he can return home to England and end Prince John's tyranny, and exclaims the series motto,
"We are Robin Hood."
In Series 3, it's immediately apparent that the show got a higher budget because everyone's armor and clothing looks awesome. We're off to a good start. This 3rd series is gonna be dope, right? So Robin and Gisborne both return to Nottingham. Robin blames Gisborne for Marion's death and lets his emotions get the better of him, throwing himself at Gisborne, trying to end their rivalry once and for all. We also meet Friar Tuck, who tries to keep Robin in check while he continues to lose control of his rage against Gisborne. In the bonus features for Series 3, we're told that Tuck may have some sort of power struggle with Robin for leadership of the group, and that happens for like 1 episode, and then he fades into the background until they need him to do some monk fu shit and give a good speech because David Harewood is so gosh dang charming. I really wish they had done a bit more with Tuck's character in this one. Later in the series, we meet Isabella, played by Laura Pulver, a potential new love interest for Robin. All of a sudden, Robin is like, Marion who? But later discovers that she is Gisborne's sister that he sold to some lord because he's a dick. They have a bit of a will they, won't they storyline between them for a few episodes, but ultimately she only cares about never going back to her psycho husband again, so I can't really fault her all that much. I don't dislike her character personally, it just feels like she was brought in to drive a wedge between Robin and Kate, and then the showrunners decided to keep her around because she's a really good actor. Prince John pays a visit to Nottingham to further his ends and comes to Gisborne and the sheriff separately, convincing them to kill the other to prove their loyalty to him. There is a hilarious exchange of failed attempted murders, but ultimately the sheriff is slain by Gisborne. Or is he? Oh, and did I mention Robin and Gisborne have a brother named Archer? And he betrays them both because he's a criminal, and he didn't even know he had 2 brothers and a sister until 5 minutes ago? I guess this makes sense because these people are just strangers to him initially, but bro, they're trying to help bust you out of jail and you double-cross them because of a few bumps along the way. Not only that, but he was introduced so late into Series 3 with only the 2-part finale left, he just feels like a plot device to bring Robin and Gisborne together and help save the day in the very next episode rather than be a complex character, especially compared to the rest of the cast. I give Series 3 a lot of flack, but it does have some good parts to it too. Like Prince John's character fits perfectly into this adaptation. He's arrogant, cruel, and in a sick and twisted way, he believes he's acting as how a monarch should act. And as I mentioned before, Prince John does echo a character theme explored in Series 1, with Robin, where he feels like he has to win the approval of his subjects. Isabella even tries to persuade him that if he at least tried to present himself as merciful, the people might respect him more. It doesn't work, but at least there was some effort put in. Another good addition is Kate. I like her character because she's confident, charming, and is a genuine asset to the team. We see her quite a few times saying she's gonna handle something, and she does it. Great. The only other redeeming part of this season is that it ended on a high note with the series finale, Something Worth Fighting For. Gisborne, who is now on our side, and as such will now be referred to as Good Guy, as well as the rest of the merry band, discover a message to Prince John that reveals King Richard is finally returning home to England in less than a month. Isabella, the new Sheriff of Nottingham, orders her guards to capture peasants from the surrounding villages. Archer comes to her court seeking an alliance, but she arrests him. Isabella later plots to silence Robin once and for all by exploiting his one weakness, his friends. She brings Kate's mother to the castle and persuades her to plant a necklace to falsely accuse Robin of still being in love with Isabella. She does as she was asked because she doesn't want Kate running around with Robin, constantly in danger to begin with. Good Guy, Tuck, and Robin discover the necklace, to which Robin begins to grow suspicious. Robin also comes to the conclusion that the only way to stop Isabella is to take the castle and put her under house arrest. Good Guy reveals that there is a secret passage into the castle. Archer also learns of the secret passage and warns Isabella of it as proof of his loyalty to her. He convinces her to trust him and builds a booby trap in the tunnel. At the same time, Isabella continues to sow discord among Robin's camp. She orders Alan Adale to be pardoned of all of his crimes, and the group believe he's betrayed them again somehow. They tie him up at camp and continue with their plan to infiltrate Nottingham Castle. Tuck tries to convince the peasants to fight with them during their assault on the castle, but Little John warns him that these people aren't fighters and can't be asked to take on this task with them. Kate discovers the necklace among Robin's things and believes her mother's false accusation. She returns home to her mother and confides to her that she loves Robin, and her mother admits it wasn't true and feels extremely guilty that she broke her daughter's heart. Alan Adale escapes from Robin's camp and is quickly ambushed by some Nottingham guards. He defeats them and rushes to find Robin. As Alan runs to the castle to save them, he gets shot with multiple arrows in the back by a familiar foe. Tuck and Little John go to stop the supply caravan from leaving with all of Nottingham's food and water at the castle, and the peasants they spoke to before decide to rise to the occasion and join them. Tuck delivers an awesome speech about making a change through peaceful protest, and that when the castle gates open, they will sit in the road and turn the other cheek. Tuck also gets shot with an arrow, and the people rise up to assault the castle. Robin, Much, and Good Guy get caught in Archer's trap, and just as Archer is about to leave Nottingham for good, he sees the people rise up against their oppressors and has a change of heart. Archer and Kate find Robin and free him from the trap just in the nick of time. Robin and his merry band, with the help of the people, take the castle and capture Isabella. Unfortunately, in a shocking twist, Sheriff Vasey is alive and delivers Alan's lifeless body to the castle gate. He brings an army and siege weapons to Nottingham and demands his town back and Good Guy's head. Robin and his friends honor Alan Adale and give him a proper funeral before the battle. Good Guy visits Isabella in jail and gives her a vial of poison as a mercy in case she can't accept being imprisoned. Isabella tricks the guard into letting her out of her cell and she escapes. Kate leaves to find King Richard and promises to return with an army. Robin hatches a plan to take out the trebuchets in the middle of the night, but they are caught, and Archer comes to save them using the sheriff's stolen supply of Byzantine fire. The next morning, Vasey's forces apprehend Kate, and she reveals to everyone that King Richard has been captured by Leopold of Austria, and the troops refuse to come to their aid without their king to lead them. Robin and his forces retreat to the castle, and Robin gives a speech to bolster their morale against what seems to be impossible odds. Tuck reverse engineers the sheriff's Byzantine fire and tells Robin that they have tons of resources to make more. Good Guy goes back into the tunnel to face Isabella, but the sheriff and his men are on the other side trying to break through Archer's booby trap. Good Guy is quickly surrounded by Isabella, the sheriff, and the Lord of Arms and tries to fight them until Robin and Archer come to aid him. Isabella tries to stab Robin in the back, but Good Guy pushes Robin out of the way as the sheriff and Isabella end up impaling Guy. Isabella, however, manages to scratch Robin and begins to taunt him. She tells him she used the poison Guy gave her on her blade, and Robin only has a few hours to live. Good Guy dies in Robin's arms, repentive of his sins of the past. Back above, Tuck finishes the Byzantine fire and they evacuate the villagers out of the castle. Just as Vasey and Isabella make it to the main hall where the Byzantine fire is, Robin fires an arrow into the main hall and blows the castle to pieces. Tuck learns of the poison coursing through Robin's veins and asks everyone to give Robin their last goodbyes. We get one last heartfelt moment with everyone, and Robin walks off into Sherwood Forest to find a place to pass away. As he drifts away, he sees the love of his life, Maid Marian, once again. He reaches out his hand and grabs hers and closes his eyes. The camera pans up to the tree line and we cut to his merry band carrying his body, a flower tucked between his fingers. Much confesses that he never expected it to end this way, and Tuck replies that Robin's legacy must live on forever through them. Little John proclaims,
"We are Robin Hood."
And everyone throws their hands in together, including Archer. They carry Robin into the forest and the screen fades to black, the end and the beginning of Robin Hood's legacy. So what makes a good Robin Hood adaptation? Is it the comedy? Or the action? Or the romance? The sense of adventure? What makes the story of Robin Hood timeless is simply that it is timeless. You can set the stage however you want. You can put a fresh new coat of paint on it, spin it in a different angle, but it will always have the heart of a Robin Hood story. And that's what makes it a good adaptation, because it has heart and is made with passion, not to make a quick buck. If you have a favorite version of Robin Hood, whether it be Prince of Thieves, Men in Tights, the Disney classic, or even the modern takes, what matters is that the story of Robin Hood speaks to you and you can be swept up into the magic of a timeless legend. And that is something we can all share. When I think of Robin Hood, I think of Jonas Armstrong, Cary Elwes, and Brian Bedford. But what's so beautiful about this story is that there's so many different depictions and adaptations to choose from. I believe that we can all see ourselves in Robin Hood's shoes in one way or another. A desire to help others, a quest for love, or to stand up for what we believe in. That's why we love it in the first place, right? In a way, we are all Robin Hood. Thank you for watching. This has been Dynadocs, a new channel for long-form video essays. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing for more. I also have another channel for gameplay-related content called Dynamite Dan TNT. You can also find me on Twitch and Twitter at Dynamite Dan TNT. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.